No, I don't think so. It's my pleasure to be here, and Al's brainchild, I think, was this dinner, and I told him I'd help him, and it was a real pleasure to do it. I really enjoyed it. I'm sorry to say that we got a couple empty seats tonight. A couple of my friends from the other side of the lawful side couldn't make it. One of them about halfway through the 4-day flu that took me out during Super Bowl weekend. I don't even know who won until 2 or 3 days afterwards. But Chubby Arrington said that he sent his apology that he's been at Korean Run Memorial Hospital every day now for about a month. And he sent his apology, and I know he's very, very sincere. And I apologize for not everybody being here, but that's where it goes. My pleasure tonight to introduce a good friend of probably about a month or 6 weeks. I lost track. But Dr. Charles Thompson Jr., but now he's here in where he was born and raised, and it's just Charlie tonight. I just happened to have his title, but since it took so long for Bobby to auction all this stuff off, and I can't even pronounce half of them. He's Dr. Charles Thompson, Dr. Charles D. Thompson Jr. with Duke University. Well-known anthropologist. You name it, he can do it. He can mic up everybody in here, and there's so much stuff he can do, but he can write a good moonshine book. I just got a review copy this week, and been so busy with this, I haven't had a chance to read it, but I'll tell you what, I've spot read some stuff, and there's good stuff in here. It's not in Mr. T. Keister Greer's conspiracy trial book. It's not in Matt Bondren's Wettest County. This is good stuff. True stuff, good reading. And as soon as I can sit down and get away from this dinner tonight, I'm going to start reading my copy. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Charles, and then we're going to get into some, you better roll your pants legs up, guys, because this is going to be some storytelling stuff in a few minutes. What Charlie tells you is truth. And you'll let the judge about the rest of us, okay? Thanks.
Thank you, Morris. Thank you all for your donations to the Rotary and to Morris. You know, I think the Rotary Club is part of the lifeblood of the community, and Morris has his finger on the pulse of this community, and I salute him for his reporting that he's done over the years. My mother lives down in Raleigh now. My parents do, and they get the paper in the mail, and they say the first thing that they read is that Morris Stephenson column, and if they don't read anything else, it's that. Several people have been asking me about where I came from. I knew Morris was from Marion, and now we've shared that story. My parents moved to Marion, Virginia when I was just a 2 or 3 year old from here in Rocky Mount where I was born. But I came back here all of my life. Several of my relatives are in the audience. I want to salute them. You know, I wrote a book called The Old German Baptist Brethren. That was one side of my family, the Jamisons, the Eichenberries, and so forth. And that is that salute to Franklin County. This side was the Thompsons and the Smiths, the Rakes from up in Endicott. And I used to joke with people about, I'd get only so far back in my family lineage in the genealogy and realize that, well, we must have just risen up from the vapors of moonshine. Some old Thompson just kind of bubbled up right out of the mash and stuck his head up, and that's how we started, because there's very precious little information going on back. We love talking about moonshine, don't we? Writing this book has taken me into communities and to listening to people. You know, it's hard to piece together history from the 1930s. A lot of people have told me different things. I've collected photographs from them, and they've saved them for over the years, and many of these photographs have made it into the book. But as they do it, I wish I just had a recorder everywhere I go. There's some new moonshine story. More than one book's been written about Franklin County. It's been in the national spotlight for our penchant for talking about strong drink. And we've come to love the attention. I bought this shirt a few years back, and y'all recognize that kind of image from Franklin County. This guy's driving a truck, running from the law enforcement, and back behind him, sort of caricatures. I wrote this book for a completely different reason from this kind of work, this kind of caricature that we often see on Hee Haw or the Mountain Dew can or movies in many cases and some books. I wanted to talk about the people that I know who weren't at all like these caricatured stereotypes of country bumpkins. But the people that I knew who grew up, at least the ones who had made their living in the 20s and 30s, I just didn't recognize it as people in this T-shirt, the people that I had grown up with, my grandparents and so forth. So my ancestors really did make moonshine. My grandfather, my great-grandfathers. Some of my ancestors, Luther Smith and C.C. Jamison, were also law enforcement officers. But every single one of them, every single one of my ancestors, as far as I know, in addition to being law enforcement or preachers or whatever they were farmers. Every single one of them lived by the sweat of their brow. So this moonshine book isn't so much about the hype that we often hear about, that's so easy to make movies about and so forth, but it's about culture and community and putting food on tables. I go all the way back to Ireland, and yes, I did go into Ireland doing research to find out why moonshine started there, Scotland and Ireland. I find out about how people already knew how to make moonshine when they arrived here. Some 200-300 years ago, people brought with them with stills and copper parts that they had learned how to make. I tell the story from some unlikely characters, people who didn't drink. And my grandfather alone was a very sober man, hauled moonshine, made his, I think in part bought his farm with the proceeds from some of the hauling that he did. But other characters are Primitive Baptist preacher Good Hash and Miss Ora Harrison, Episcopalian missionary, who have a chapter each dedicated to them. They show up in the moonshine trials. I definitely talk about the moonshine trials. The nationally acclaimed author Sherwood Anderson shows up in the book. But I want to find out in this book, and I think I succeed, why Sherwood Anderson came to care about these people in a place called Franklin County. Why would he do that? And why would the Secretary of Commerce in the Roosevelt administration send somebody like him to tell the human side of the story? So I wanted to tell the human side of the story too, and I rely a lot on Sherwood Anderson's broad writings. He wrote numerous articles about moonshine. He lived up near where we went to school in Smith County, in a little farm he called Ripshin. And he wrote Winesburg, Ohio, but he also wrote a number of different works that have a lot to do with moonshine. I know there are a lot of great stories to come, so I just want to give you a flavor of the voice of this book so that you'll know how I wrote it. We start out here in a scene where we're in Pete Thompson's store. Pete Thompson is my great-grandfather. The neighbor men would sit a while, everyone knowing that they were playing with fire. A few would load up some bags of sugar. Some could pay cash after a run, and some couldn't, but instead would buy on credit until the still was run. After visiting a bit, some procured square-sided 5-gallon cans and loaded them onto a truck bed and covered them with a canvas tarp. But they weren't hiding much from those who lived there. Everybody knew everybody's business. This was protection and vulnerability sewn into one backdrop. Even the children knew, but they were told to keep away from the places back in the hollows where the men gathered during the night, lanterns burning and steam rising up through rhododendron and hidden hemlock branches, unless they were needed to help. Everyone could tell a still was running, sometimes by the thumping sound, or the smoke, or when the hogs and cattle coming upon spent mash would stumble around fields, or when the men gone to drink would walk the road staggering too. The children of the mean drunks knew especially well. Sometimes people could tell by a man's extra money he spent at the store when the run was done. The most serious of the liquor makers either refrained from drinking while working or kept away from it altogether. There was too much at stake to run a still while under the influence. They knew that some of those around them had done time. Being sent to jail meant less money for the family, so they kept up a network for notifying people that when alerted spread faster than a car could drive. Stillers usually knew that the law was coming to make a bust perhaps an hour or more before they arrived. There was a system of warnings. Might have been a series of shouts or shots, a farm bell, or a child running down a path to a neighbor's homestead, or notices relayed from as far away as Ferrum that told of strange cars or people headed their way. The whole community, regardless of age, worked together to protect its livelihood, even if they didn't do the work themselves. They knew why their men and women had to make liquor. It was no less a necessity than having to get up on dark mornings to break ice out of springs or to feed and milk the cows. Turning corn into liquor was a farm chore, and it was about the only one that yielded cash in that time and place. A few outsiders who used the old red road caused no alarms when they did so. Two of them were Miss Ora and Miss Maud, the women missionaries who lived up at St. John's on the other end of the community in what the local people called the Rock Church. The two sometimes made their way in the mission's car up the back hollows to tend to the sick and to women giving birth, walking or riding horseback if they had to, and arriving in the homes with baskets in hand and mud-caked shoes. The granny midwives were often the first to arrive for birthings, but the missionaries were usually close behind and welcomed when they made it. They had medicine and later visiting doctors who worked with them. Another frequent visitor in the early years, the most regular of all when he carried the mail in his horse-drawn jumper, was the primitive Baptist preacher named James Good Hash. Most called him affectionately Elder Good, as he befriended and tried to help most everyone in Endicott and neighboring communities for miles around, sometimes catching a ride with relatives or neighbors and going on foot to make his rounds. He was often the preacher called on to talk with the sick and dying, read them the Bible, and help bury those who succumbed. Besides those few, the occasional musicians who would come through and play a house dance, most everyone who came through on horseback in wagons or in motor vehicles lived there. That is, except for the bootleggers from out of the county and even out of the state, like the dueling boys from West Virginia and other buyers that people didn't know at all, who started showing up in the dead of night to pick up a load, or convoys of drivers from outside the community, from places like Floyd and Roanoke, came roaring in unannounced and left out at speeds too fast for most drivers on a dirt road. Then there were the lawmen who barreled into the community, sometimes 2 or 3 carloads at a time, guns ready, and in an attempt to surprise some unsuspecting crew at their stills, as well as the other lawmen there to collect fees for protections from bust. With the community's warning system at the ready and informants as far away as Ferrum calling in once phones came, few raids or even visits occurred without prior knowledge. But as traffic on even the worst roads increased and unknown vehicles went there for business or to try to break it up, people lost their ability to know every car owner and to name who went up and down the road. The Endicott roads, as bad as they were, became busy with commerce and its regulation, even if most of the dollars traveling them were destined for pockets elsewhere, including the pockets of the lawmen themselves. The traffic was a clear sign that change had come, and the cars were the harbingers of a world of consequences about to break in on Franklin County with full force. So I tell about how moonshine was invented. I tell about how Indian corn became the go-to grain in this community, how the first presidents were actually still owners, that this was a very quintessential U.S. American drink. 3 of the first 5 presidents had still houses. So, but mostly it's the story of those who weren't very well known, like my ancestors who didn't get much attention. It's the story of an American place that some people have forgot about, that used to have a lot more population than it does now, where people were on the fringes of national commerce, did the best they could with what they had, and their urge was to provide for families. These are the people I write about. They were just people. That's where the title comes from. Many of them fine, upstanding citizens. Some, as Sherwood Anderson said, were mean. Others tricky, gentle, fierce, generous, just like people everywhere. The title comes from the book of Hebrews in the New Testament. Spirits, of course, means liquor, but it also is about the spirits of ancestors who surrounded me as I wrote, chiding me to get it right, in whose honor I dedicated this book, to those who lived it, to those who lived because of it, including my family. And I dedicate this to the people of Franklin County as well, both who came before and those who are with us today. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Dr. Charlie for that. That's the part I didn't read. That helped. Before I go any further and introduce these gentlemen down the line here, I'd like to, first of all, thank my wife, Hazel, first time she's been out in 3 months, for being here tonight. And it's not often I get my son and daughter together, but Kurt and Kathy are here too, so this turned out to be a family affair. Proud of all 3 of them. Let me introduce these guys to the ones who have not had the opportunity to know them, to meet them. They're great people. They've been friends for a long time. And I'm just sorry that 2 of the others who made the whiskey aren't here tonight. But on my left, the first gentleman you'll be hearing from is WN, as we used to call him in the newspaper because we used initials, but it's Woodrow Ward, retired state trooper, who had the fastest car from the law side. And when people started telling about running from somebody, this is who they were most proud to run from. If they got away from him, they did something. This next gentleman's been a friend of mine for a long time. Jack Powell lives in Roanoke, ABEC agent, and he has cut up many a steel, and he used to walk around. He was cocky. Had a little hat turned up in the front, and a little hat turned up in the back, and when he came to a steel place, he had a great big old axe, pickaxe called Devil. And when he got through, he played the devil with that steel. There's no doubt about it. Lane Rakes, my neighbor in Ferrum, and his wife Sue is with him tonight. She's a songwriter. Lane, it comes from a long string of rakes who made liquor. And he's very, very knowledgeable, but he also writes the words to songs, moonshine songs. And Bobby and Lane have collaborated, they've gotten together, and they've cranked out some things too. And Bobby Radford, who is one of the best race cars that come out of the Radford clan after Uncle Paul. I have to put him behind Uncle Paul. Bobby'd been around a long time, but all of a sudden he started playing instruments, self-taught. Then he started writing songs. I don't know actually which one came first. But now he's gospel is number 1. Franklin County and Moonshine stories and songs, that's in there too. He's got some good CDs. So without any further ado, I know you've been waiting for this. Jack Powell and I worked together for 4 years doing something like this at the Blue Ridge Folklife Festival. And Jack's got a book out, but I want him to tell one story as soon as I finish one. The night that I went to the steel place to make the liquor that was back there in those pictures, there's a picture of me filling the plastic jugs.
You ought to have been charged.
I know, I got away. There wasn't but one door, and I kept watching that one door thinking, I was no use in watching the door, there's nobody else coming in there, but if they do, you're going to be where you are, stand right there. But that night...
You duped those moonshiners into taking you down there to that still, and then you helped them make liquor. Now you tell me that you wasn't in conspiracy with them?
I don't know nothing.
There's several lawyers sitting there, you better get them.
They on the wrong side of the law. I got to find me somebody else. Hey, there's got to be somebody. But let me tell you about the one little quick incident that made me look like a fool. I was taking my camera, and there weren't many professional cameras in the county, and I had to set the dials, and I wanted pictures of me to prove that I was there. So when they came to filling up the jugs, I said, hey, I want a picture of that. So the other moonshiner comes over, I set the settings, I got everything focused, and I said, stand right here, and when I get over there, take my picture. Okay, simple. So the other guy's got the hose, so he hands me the hose, and I get down on my knees like he was filming them. And he said, you ready? And I said, yeah. I have a thumb over it. He said, I'm going to get out of the picture. I don't want to be in this picture. So I started filling the jug. No problem. When it got almost full, I tried to stop it with my thumb, and it came squirting all over the place. Liquor was going all over around my thumb. I didn't know my thumb was that big. And they were yelling, crimp it, crimp it, crimp it. Crimp what? Crimp what? Crimp. And about that time, here came the one that handed me the hose and said, crimp it. And he grabbed it and squeezed it, and liquor went, nothing. I didn't know that he had it crimped when he handed me the hose and didn't hand me the back part of the hose to crimp. So I wasted a lot of liquor, and they got all mad at me. I'm still embarrassed, and those two of those guys are still around. One of them's dead, but they still bug me about it. Hey, you made any liquor lately? Yeah, right. Jack's got a book out. He's got 3 books out, a continuation, 1, 2, 3. And I want to ask Jack a question. In one of his books, and I did a big story in the News Post, he and several agents watched the UFO. For several hours, I let him tell a story off the Blue Ridge Parkway. He's got a drawing in the book. Jack, pick up the story.
I don't know if it's a good idea or not, frankly. But back in those days, back in the early 50s and 60s, that if anyone saw a phenomena of any sort outside of a regular airplane or something, they particularly what he's referring to, UFO, somebody maybe trying to light here from somewhere else, they thought you was dang crazy. Well, it's up on the Blue Ridge Parkway, Bowman and Doucette. Doucette in here? No, I doubt it very seriously. And anyway, we to make a long story short, about 2:20 in the morning, a bright phenomena of some sort descended and kept descending down, and then it would move to the right and to the left. And we had a federal car at that time with a federal scope called a Visivant, and it's an infrared scope. It could pick up most anything anywhere and pretty much define it, but you couldn't define this whatever was, well, you said it, whatever was coming down. Well, I first thought it was a meteorite of some sort. I first thought it again, I thought maybe it was a plane. Sometimes they get confused with their lights, you know, shining and what have you. But it kept coming down and dancing around and up and what have you. And so I got Bowman awake, and and he looked through the Visiband. He saw what I saw. I got Doucette out of the back seat asleep. All the other men were down on Running Bag Creek on a big still down there and done gone to sleep. And I tried to call them on the radio so they could see it too, but they're all dead to the world. I don't know whether they're drinking or not or what, but I know they were asleep down there because nobody answered the radio. And I don't think these people out there that was coming down to see us had jammed the radio, you reckon? So there was an astrobiologist, if that's the correct word, Professor, that was here at Ferrum College lecturing and had gone to the airport, and I had told WSLS Clay Peters about it, and he called this German doctor, astrobiologist from Indiana, Illinois, and he said, well, let me talk to Mr. Powell. And I related some similar to what I'm telling you. I didn't go into greater detail now than I did then, but I told him, and he said, Mr. Powell, it looks to me like that you may have been drinking too much of your moonshine. And hung the dang phone up. So now you can. We saw what we saw. I even tried to get Doucette here about 2 years ago to help me out a little bit. He said, Jack, don't call me again. Hung the phone up. So but now remember, 10 days after that, a Russian Aeroflot pilot saw from going to Minsk. He saw similar to what we saw. And of course, I don't know whether they banded him to Siberia or whatever happened. Sometime about 10 days after that, 2 pilots from Hollywood, Florida, flying into National Airport, had seen some similar things. Now, there was one guy from Franklin County called me here, lives down in Bowles, I think his name, lived down somewhere near Union Hall or somewhere. He said he had seen something similar to that. Bowles, are you here? For God's sake, keep seated. No, I'm just kidding. But we saw what we saw, and I know you have tried to pry all you can about it, but you can't make chicken stuff out of chicken salad. Oh, it's the other way around. So, it's hard to do. I heard the professor talk about Mr. Good. Mr. Good, and then I'll let you talk, okay? Is it okay? Mr. Good and Mr. Harris Short and Luther Good were making liquor up in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And that's where I was stationed when I first went to work. And they had cornered 2 turkey thieves. The turkey capital of the world is in Harrisonburg. Steal a turkey is too bad, bud. So we had caught these guys, Luther Good and Harry Short. I took them into the judge, and the judge says, well, Mr. Good, you've been coming in here for a long time. And Mr. Short, you too. He said, what kind of whiskey were you making? He said, I was making good whiskey. So, waiting for the 2 thieves that stole the turkeys, the judge asked Mr. Short, he said, you come back in here one more time and your show's over. You understand me, Mr. Short? Yes, sir, Your Honor. Yes, sir, Your Honor. So he gave him probation and a $250 fine, I believe it was. And so the judge looked at him and said, I want to tell you one thing, Mr. Good. Don't you make no more of that good whiskey, or you've had it too. Made me think of it. Go ahead.
Ward. That's my favorite tale right there. Trooper Ward told a story at the Folklight Festival when he was there. And I've always, and if you folks that are natives of here or have been here quite as long as I have, you've heard a lot about Peanut Chitwood. About could Peanut Chitwood drive a race car? Here's an eyewitness, a chaser from a runner. Tell you a story, Trooper Ward. This is a good one.
This was in 59.
A little louder.
I don't think his mics work.
Give us a signal, Stevie. Go ahead, and he says it's working.
This is 1959. I was coming into Route 40 up at Otis Boland's from the north side of 40. And I saw headlights coming down ride 40 about 3 o'clock in the morning. So I stopped and waited for it to go by. And of course, it's fit for Ford with North Carolina plates on it. So he started running. He took off from there. So I chased him on down into the Rocky Mountain, stayed with him good all the way down. I had 57 Ford with about 65,000 miles on it. Engine about ready to blow up in a minute. So, but stayed with him good all the way through, right through town. Every time he turned every way he could to try to duck me. But he couldn't shake me here in town. But after we left the hub and hit 40 East, where he could use all the power he had, the road straightened out, he just started pulling away from me. And we were going down Route 40, and mine, 115 is all mine would run. And so, time we got to Redwood, he was already a mile ahead of me, at least a mile. So we got on down to the sharp left curve at the rescue squad building, Glade Hill Rescue Squad building. There was this tire marks. He was complete on the left side of the road. So I decided if he made it, I would too. So I laid my wheels right in on his tracks. And of course, he's going on. So went on down about a mile and a half further. And the next sharp curve to the right, at the foot of a hill, he was laying over on his top. He broke the left front spindle off and overturned. Peanut was laying out through where the windshield had been, with his feet tangled up in the stern wheel. Had 20 cases of whiskey on. And so I talked to him before, you know, and he loved to brag a little bit about getting away from me, you know. So I had told him one time, I said, that's all right, Peanut. I said, I don't have anything to run like you have. They don't give me nothing to run like you have. But I said, you can't be lucky always, you know, taking wild chances. I said, sometime or another something's going to happen and I'm going to get you. He laughed and said, well, if you catch me right, I won't have nothing to say. So while I was getting him out of the car there, he said, well, I had to be caught. I'm glad you're the one who got me. So we brought him on to jail that morning after his brother-in-law was pinned down in the car, but didn't break a jar of the whiskey, not one jar. And we had to take the front seat loose. First we had to move the case of liquor out of the back glass and take the bolts loose from the front seat and let it drop down so we slide it back and get his brother-in-law out. So on the way to jail that morning, he said, that thing sure was running good this morning. He said, I better run 150 miles an hour. And he was. He had to be there to gain that much distance on me. But he was a good driver. Always, no, didn't hurt him a bit.
I'm going to go back to Trooper Ward just a minute because I want to, from far as I know, that's his famous chase that he was successful because of the bootlegger failure. I want to go back to some that he caught. Lane, let me ask you a question, and I'm going to go to Bobby. Then I got these two guys together because I want them to eventually play a couple songs, okay? Lane, how long would you guess that your family made liquor? Just guessing.
Since they come over here from
Yep.
Ireland.
How long ago?
Well, they said when the boat come over here, some of them went to farming, you know, what they used to, and the ones that made liquor would start making liquor, you know, when they first come here. Everybody did what he was at best at.
You grew up in it like a lot of younger people, and you know they're still around today. Most of them I've talked to that make liquor were started up. You told me a story one time about the first job that you ever had. Tell these folks your first job as a child.
Well, I was 8 years old. And Daddy had a little old turnip top still up there and a shed over it up at Grandma's. And I was 8 years old, and he said, boy, I want you to go with me tonight. I got a job for you. And I said, well, if I can do it, I'll do it. And so my parents stayed up all night and had the old mule tied underneath that shed there where we dragged the wood to fire the steel. And he said, your job is to watch that mule. Your old mule flop his old ears all around. But if something walks up, I don't care if it's a dog, a man, what, he's sticking his ears straight out, you know. Well, 8 years old, about 2 o'clock, cold, you know. And there's a big old hound dog there, and there's some old sugar sacks and meal sacks there. Lay inside that furnace, got warm. I went to sleep. I slept all night long. Anyway, I woke up next morning. Dad said, boy, you're a good watchdog. You slept all night. He still had that little old dream look about like a nail running, and he worked all night, and I slept all night.
You didn't fool him a bit, did you? When? Let me ask you this: about when did you start helping your dad make the liquor, and what were you? Just tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in those days, in you know, in a family depended on their on the.
Got older, you know. The older we got, the more we could do, you know. And then we start mashing apples, making branding, peach branding. And it was $9, you know. And Daddy never worked a public job in his life. And you either did that or just didn't have no job back in, you know, back in the early 50s. Yeah.
How many? You said nine children in the family.
Yeah.
And have brothers? How many brothers, sisters?
5 brothers. It was 5 boys and 4 girls.
You know, I don't know this, and I don't have a clue, but were your sisters involved in any way?
I think they worked at home, canned and stuff, you know.
They didn't actually
No.
have any role in the making of the liquor.
My grandma used to help at that same place.
Really?
Yeah, she'd help, did it, make it mash, you know. Yeah.
Grandma would help, but
Yeah.
but your sisters weren't treated with that. Okay. How many years do you reckon that you made it? Guess. Without incriminating yourself, of course.
Well,
I'm not putting you on the spot.
right.
Hey,
See me
you
sweat.
don't have to answer. Just forget that.
Plead the fifth. Plead the fifth.
The man's right here. The man's right here. The man's right here.
Would that be a familiar? Let me ask you this: were you ever caught?
No, we got chopped down a lot of times. They finally cut it up.
Another old-timey moonshiner told me that I want to verify this with you. He told me that they always wanted to see an agent in town when they were somewhere around town to check and see what kind of boots they wore, what kind of tracks they made, and what kind of a sole they might have had on their boots, and if one limped, and what kind of a stride. Is that this was true?
I'm sure, yeah. Them logos. On
Well,
your soul.
this man was older than us.
Yeah.
Older than me.
I remember back in wasn't no deer back in.
No, there wasn't.
And he'd take that little white thread, about that high off the ground, every path and everything, he'd stretch across there. And we'd go in there and if them threads wasn't broke, and pretty good idea, wasn't nobody been in there, you know.
That's so the possums and the skunks and the little short
Go
animals.
under. If anybody hit it with a chest, they'd break it and never know they run into a thread. I bet you run it.
Seen 100 spools wrapped around the stills and down. On top of that, they put a line down in case it make any difference what kind of tread you had. You're talking about that story, talking about the old mama and grandma and everybody in the family helping out. We got a call down in Botetourt County one day, and arrived down there, and here stands a guy, and he said we was in an unmarked car, and he said, what kind, who are you? What are you? I said, game commission. What do you want? He said, I'm not looking for no game warden. I'm looking for an ABC man. I said, for what? He said, my mom and dad is making liquor around there in that shed. Can't you see the smoke coming out? I said, well, yeah, I see the smoke coming out. And he said, well, you go around there and you arrest them. I want them arrested right now. And boy, it didn't look like he had all his, full deck, So I went around there, and you could see right in the door there, and you could smell the mash. I mean, You know, it's open view doctrine. You know, he didn't need a warrant or anything, and I just told him, you're under arrest, ma'am, and mister. Well, I'll be damn fit in something coming in here taking my liquor and my still. And I said, well, you got to go down to Fincastle, ma'am, and surrender. And we got him bond and come back home. I went back home. It was on a Saturday. About an hour later, the sheriff's office called and said, Jack, you got to go back up there. So we went back up there, and the mom and daddy were standing there. And I said, what's wrong? Well, this son of mine out here has got a big still on the back of this truck. It's a stainless steel still, and it's huge. And it was a canvas there, and there was a truck there. And not having a warrant before, that was it. And he said, there's 2 stolen motorcycles on it, and I want you to do something. And that trailer right there, it's got a floorboard that's out of the inside of it. It's got drugs and guns down in it. I said, well, where is he? And he said, well, he's the one that called you. Now, you find him. Well, he had escaped over into West Virginia. And so we took charge of the truck and the motorcycles and the still, and she said, you're not finished yet. And I said, what do you mean, ma'am? You go up here on this orchard, it's an orchard up here, and it said there's several barrels of apples up there working. I want them destroyed. Pour them down the hill here. So we did. And so I found out where he lived over in Franklin, West Virginia. It's on Route 33 out of Harrisonburg. So I called a trooper over there, and he said, yeah, I know where that is. He's laying up there with a woman. I said, well, unlay him. And so he goes and gets him, and we take him back to Fincastle, you know. But can you imagine, though, now mind you, the mama and daddy out there making liquor, and his son come out and wants them caught, you know. Well, all kinds of things happen. This man advertised a still in the paper over in Giles County. I don't know what I ought to tell her what the Commonwealth Attorney said here. But he advertised a nice still, copper still, and so I called the agent that saw it, and he said, yeah, Jack. I said, well, we'll go over there and talk to him. So my partner and I arrived over in Pembroke, and Mr. Pirtle was the man's name. He's 92 years old, answered the door and said, yes, sir, what can I do for you? And I said, well, you got a still for sale? Certainly have. Been down in the basement since 1937. And he said, and I got papers with it. I said, well, what kind of papers have you got? He said, well, I made liquor back in the 30s and fed it to the people here and said, it's a pure copper steel. I said, well, you mind showing it to us? Still hadn't told him who we were. He said, sure. I said, how much you want for it? He said, I want $85 for it. I said, well, show it to us. Go down the basement, and sure enough, it's a beautiful commercial still. It's actually a commercial still. And so I said, well, Mr. Pirtle, I'm mighty sorry that we're going to have to take the still. We're not going to arrest you right now, but we're going to take your still, and I'm going to talk to the Commonwealth Attorney. His name was Robert Powell. I'm sure that the gentlemen know Mr. Robert Powell. Went on to become a circuit court judge. Went to see Mr. Powell. Mr. Powell said, Jack, where's the still? He says, out in your car. He said, well, what kind of still? I said, it's a beautiful still. It's got papers with it. He said, bring it in here. And I said, well, we didn't bring Mr. Pirtle because, first of all, he's 92 years old, and I don't know with it. He said he didn't make any liquor. He'd been making liquor in 50 or 75 years with it. And he said, well, bring it in here. And so we carted it into Mr. Powell's office. And I said, it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? He said, yeah, and it's going to stay here, too. I said, Mr. Powell, you can't have this still no more than I can. No more than Mr. Pirtle can. He said, you want to bet? So he gets on the phone to the ABC board and gets an heirloom permit. Now, that's the truth. And he put it in his office, and there's where it remained till he left as a circuit court judge. From the Commonwealth Attorney, took it up there in stairs and put it in the circuit court judge, and then took it over in West Virginia with it. And I hope he's not making liquor with it. But that's the truth. You got here.
Earl,
Got no papers with it.
No papers.
No papers.
Bobby, you're a great auctioneer, dude. Tell me your famous or the moonshine story that sticks in your mind the most that you've heard over the years. And if it's about Uncle Paul, I won't tell him.
Well, whoever bid it on that mash stirring stick back there, what do you call it? Mash fork. This guy made it, in case y'all didn't know that. Who's the highest bid on that mash fork? Have you given it away yet?
Not yet.
Not
no.
yet, okay. Hold it up back there. Show that mash fork to him. There you go. Yeah. $30 so far. This guy made this thing.
He'll sign it, won't he?
He'll actually sign it. Can you write?
He writes your songs.
Yep, he sure did. We're going to do a couple of songs in a minute. A song about allegedly his daddy's steel in a minute called Moonshine Cliff. I got another song that's got Troop Award in it. I can't wait to do that one.
Dedicated.
Dedicate to him for sure, called Driving Down Route 40. But Roddy Moore, some of you know Roddy at Ferrum College, he told me I need to write a song about my uncle, Paul Radford. A lot of you know my uncle. Back in his day, he was allegedly.
No, he wasn't a legend.
Don't get excited. Jack done got excited already. He was actually coming out of a steel place on a pickup truck, and it was loaded to the gills with either sugar or jars or something. And a revenue had jumped off the bank on top of the truck and was holding on. Paul seen him in the mirror, so he just threw the gas to it, trying to throw him off.
Cliff Wright was a revenue agent. He shot through the back window. It went down through the mirror and down into the progressive linkage to the
Miss Paul's
alleged 4 carburetors that was on it. And it went and it went out through a field, and he had to bail out of it. Your uncle.
Hey,
On top of that, got after your uncle with Clifford Boyd. Anybody know Clifford Boyd? You do? Okay,
Everybody knows Cliff.
Forget it then. Clifford Boyd was a block car. And to make a long story short, by the time we got around Clifford Boyd, the liquor car, he had got from the Franklin Pike to the Blue Ridge Parkway. Of course, he had denied it, and he made a left turn, and he had a 55 green Ford with a Eldorado Cadillac engine in it. Everybody ever heard them with about 4 carburetors run 130 miles an hour, second gear?
Yeah.
Now, what do you think? We might as well have been on a donkey. Anyway, we made a left turn onto the parkway, and of course, it was just a ball of fire we saw. But he apparently, when he rounded a curve on the parkway, a sharp curve down, some way or another, either the liquor shifted or the lean went bad on those so-called alleged carburetors, and it went. But by that time, when we got there, it was on its top, sliding down the parkway on the top, and no Paul Radford. No Uncle Paul. He was probably in Texas by then.
Now you know how he got the name Flash. So Roddy Moore told me I need to write a song about that little incident. And so we got to start. Sometimes lyrics come to me real easy, and sometimes they don't. This one it hadn't come to me easily, but we got to start on it called "Run Flash Run." It's going to be the name of that song about shooting down through that truck.
have you recorded that yet?
No, we're just starting on it. We just lyrics
start.
ain't coming to me good, but we got the
Well,
first
you
3
wanna
words.
take-
Run, flash, run. We got that much done.
You wanted to take a break here and let's listen to some music? Would that be all right?
Let me do
Let's
the
give Bobby
one.
a hand. Let's let him go.
Let me do one of them got Trip Award in it. The back
This
in
is
the,
his wife, by the way. Right here, the lady in the purple. Oh, she's not claiming him now.
we were sitting around talking to Linda Stanley one day when she was got the new building, the house that the Franklin County Historical is in now. She said, we need some music with some old Moonshine songs to go with the Moonshine exhibit. So me and my friends got together. I got together with Lane, got together with Lane's wife, Susan, which is right here. Y'all give a hand to Susan. Susan had already written several poems about life and times up in Ferrum, Endicott, and Shooting Creek area. A lot of them had to do with moonshining, the way people lived back in the 30s and the 40s and 50s. Written several poems. So some of you know Mr. Steve Shively, he owns Outlet Recording Studios. He got a hold of some of the poems. I got a hold of some of the poems. We put music to a lot of them. So that's how this little Moonshine CD come to be created. And you can get them right over there. Jack's selling them for me. They're only $8 a piece. It's got the picture of the Moonshine steel on it. We did this about 3 years ago. Since then, they've written more poems, and I've been, and some other friends have put music to their poems. And he's got his own CD with a couple songs off of here and some more originals. And then Susan has her CD. So he's got 3 CDs with some other originals that's not on here and not on his CD. So all kind of good original music about the life and times around the Ferrum, Endicott, Shooting Creek area, the Appalachian Mountains. And almost all of them has got something mentioned about moonshine. So let's do this one right here first. Lane wrote this poem, gave it to me a few years ago. It's about, and it's on this CD, and on the back of this CD, you got a picture of a little Ford coming down Sawmill Road, which is right up near Crossroads. And that little Ford is sitting outside. So I drove it here tonight, so y'all can go outside and check it out when you're ready to leave. But this song is a poem that he wrote about his daddy when Daddy had a moonshine still up on a rock cliff face up in Endicott that never was caught, called Moonshine Cliff. And in this poem, in this song, we name names. So some of y'all might get embarrassed. Or you might feel proud, I don't know. But it's called Moonshine Cliff. It goes something like this. Let me tell you of a place that I know well, a place where my daddy is moonshine still. Way up high on a rock cliff face, it was a natural hiding place. 3 sides of the cliff on the perfect flue that couldn't be seen by the federal crew. They looked from the air and they searched from the ground. The laurels hid it well and it never was found. Yeah, Dad and I, we worked it hard, proof and shine beneath the moon and the stars. We were scared stiff of the law and the ladder, but we kept on brewing to make the run better. But the 21st century has arrived. Nobody cares about Southern pride. So I guess I'll quit, just move on, tell my story in this here song. Yeah, I can tell you stories about Shooting Creek, especially about them Rakes boys, and the Atkins, the Scotts, Whitlocks, Nowlands, the Morrises, the Powells, Stephensons, the Laws, especially about those Radford brothers, Flash and Shag. Man, they could straighten out a crooked road for sure. Well, this could go on for hours. I'm gonna stop right here, say something for the next song. Until then, keep the crooked road alive by telling stories just like this one.
Yeah.
Another song I want to do has got an award in it. A lot of you know Mr. Gene Parker, one of the probably best banjo players in the country. He stopped at my house one day and said, "Ward wants one of them CDs, got him on it." I said, "You get it?" All right. Many, many years ago, Mr. Tommy Quinn, who lived up in the Endicott area, he's no longer with us, but he wrote a song. It's the same melody as the wreck of the old 97. But he wrote a song about this little moonshiner up in Endicott Got him a load of liquor on his hot rod Ford, and some of you remember them 40 Ford Coupes with them awful housing engines, with them superchargers, them Columbia ends. Y'all remember that? Had to have a horsepower outrunning you know who. He was coming down through Endicott and come by across.
The things we had wouldn't pull a greasy string out of a chicken.
Need to write a song about that, don't we? But anyway, yeah, come down out of Endicott, down Route 40, come through Crossroads, and right there is where Trooper Riddles was notorious. Sat down and wait on him. At least that's what as the story goes. He pulled out and chased him. Just loved to chase him shiners. And back in those days, when you went down through Route 40 and come through Ferrum, you had to cross the railroad track. They got a bridge over at Ferrum now. You can bypass the track. Back in the day, you had to cross the track. Well, a lot of times there were Trooper Ward with a roadblock on the track. At least that's how the story goes. So Tommy wrote a little song. He wrote this song back when I was in high school, back in the late 60s. And a friend of mine recorded it back in the 70s. I recorded it for this CD a few years ago. It's called Driving Down Route 40. I was driving down Route 40 in my little Ford coupe with a Offenhauser supercharged mule. I'd been up in the mountains loading illegal whiskey from a pure copper moonshine still. It's pure corn shine, selling 20 bucks a gallon. To haul it, you have to stay on the ball. And it really makes me shiver just to think what might happen if someone was to make a phone call. Well, I made it to Crossroads, right on schedule, but Riddle was waiting on me. I glanced in the mirror, I could see his headlights. He was pulling out to follow me. Well, I stomped it to the floor, calling on my little flathead, and I could see old Riddles falling back. Well, I thought I had him made till I pulled into Ferrum. There sat Ward with a roadblock on the track. Now, if you want to hear how he gets out of that, and he does, you're going to have to do what? And it's where? We got plenty of them. Want to hear another one? Let me do one more little quick one. Linda Stanley said that this ought to be the Franklin County official theme song. And she's been trying to put it on the website, but she didn't have much luck. This is a song Susan wrote. Memories of Shooting Creek? Oh, we can do that one. Susan Justice Rakes wrote this song right here. And I'm going to do just a verse and a chorus. Because if you're going to hear the rest of it, what you're going to have to do. Linda Stanley at the Historical Society loves this song called Welcome to Franklin County. Y'all come visit us here in Franklin County, the moonshine capital of the world. There's lots to do and see and a colorful history and plenty southern hospitality. The Crooked Road music trail starts right here, winding through the valley and the hills. You will not travel long before you hear a bluegrass song and find yourself singing right along. Yeah, y'all come visit us here in Franklin County, the moonshine capital of the world. There's lots to do and see and a colorful history and plenty southern hospitality. Yeah, plenty southern hospitality. Thank you. There's two more verses of that song. We talk about Philpott Lake and Smith Mountain Lake and boating, fishing, hunting, Booker T and the History Museum, and a mountain man whittling on some bark. And that's him whittling on that First time I ever went into Franklin County Historical Society, he was sitting there working on them mash forks, and that's how that line, and that's on the last line, is the last verse. So you want to hear Memories of Shooting Creek? We did a little bit of, just another song that Susan wrote, a poem she wrote many, many, many years ago. How many years ago has it been? Steve Shively put a melody to this one called Memories of Shooting Creek. I'll just do a couple of verses. It's 4 verses, this song. Memories of Shooting Creek along the crooked road. Now, how many of y'all know about the Virginia Heritage Music Trail, the Crooked Road? A lot of you do. If you don't know about it, go online. Virginia Heritage Music Trail, the Crooked Road. Starts here in Rocky Mountain, goes all the way to Wise County. It's a part of the Virginia tourism that promotes bluegrass music. And that's what we're talking about, the Crooked Road. If you listen, you might hear bluegrass in the air, echoing off the mountaintops and creek bottoms where all the corn crops grow. Mountain curry bark, train a coon in the dark, it will never ever leave their hearts. Memories of Shooting Creek along the crooked road, where some late night you might see the ghost of a liquor maker at the stills that the moon shines high, shines bright into the sky. Way back in them their hills, now music in their soul, whiskey making in their blood, all along the hollows low. Memories of Shooting Creek along the crooked road. Yeah, memories of Shooting Creek along the crooked road. Now, there's 2 more verses of that song, so I want y'all to make sure you get a CD and take it home with me.
Applause. Help him.
Since it's a moonshine dinner, we got to do good old Mountain Dew. Everybody knows that song. Now, when I get to the part that says, oh, that good old Mountain Dew, I want y'all to go, Yahoo! Okay? Oh, they call it that good old Mountain Dew. Yahoo! And them that refuse it are but few. I want you to say just a few. And them that refuse it are a few. I'll hush up my mug if you fill up my jug with that good old Mountain Dew. Yeah, there you go. Now my Uncle Nort, he's sawed off and short, he measures about 5'2". But it feels like a giant when you give him a pint of that good old Mountain Dew. Oh, they call it that good old Mountain Dew. And them that refuse it are but few. It's 3 words, just a few. And them that refuse it are but few. I'll hush up my mug if you'll fill up my jug with that good old Mountain Dew. Oh, they call it that good old Mountain Dew. And them that refuse it are but few. Better. I'll hush up my mug if you fill up my jug with that good old Mountain Dew. Give yourself a hand. Thank y'all.
I'm sure I need to ask Trooper Ward. I think this has been asked before. Who have you caught that were, quote, notorious? Runners. I knew you had a special knack from seeing a runner car coming.
I did. I remember, I guess it was around 60, about 56, I guess it was. I'd been with an ABC officer up to Philpott Lake.
That was your mistake.
Yeah. The supervisor, he'd been up to drop off 2 other agents at the steel there. And late in the afternoon, I'd worked for 8 hours with the state police and just threw a field jacket on over gun belt to go with him. So we dropped him off up at Horseshoe Point. came back on the 605 and headed back towards Crossroads. And we met a 48 black Plymouth with North Carolina plates on it. And I made the remark to Taylor, the ABC officer, that there goes a load of whiskey. And he said, "You think so?" I said, "Bet your money it is." He said, "Well, we'll just see." So he turned around on, he's driving an old 48 Ford, his private car. So the car turned and went down the same road we'd gone down, like he's going to Salt House Branch, Twin Ridge, make a loop around Philpott Lake. And so got up beside him up there, and Taylor started blowing the car horn. And the driver looked over at us, you know, and I could see the cases of whiskey stacked up in the back seat. So we went down by where home of Philpott used to live. It's a narrow, crooked road down there. Seemed like we was running 70, 80 miles an hour, I don't know. But to the foot of the hill, there's a sharp curve and a wooden railing bridge going into that bridge. And so Taylor was ramming him in the rear, sliding him sideways. So going up the next hill, it was a series of sharp curves. And he was on the wrong side of the road in every curve, and Taylor was hitting him. So finally got to the top of the hill, and he turned off and went out over in the pines. And jumped out and left it. One of the tires was leaking down, a little air coming out of the tires. So we got the load of whiskey. And about 12 years later, I was traveling west on 605 from Henry to Crossroads, and it was a dreary like night, heavy mist of rain. Meantime, they'd built a new church in the corner there where you turned to go to Philpott Lake. And they was having a meeting there on a Wednesday night. The ground was wet and muddy. So I met an old Buick, that same place we met that Plymouth before. And I told myself it, you know, it was loaded. So I turned around to check him and pulled into that churchyard. Two men got out and started up to the church door like they were going into church, you know. I pulled in behind the car and didn't say anything, walked on by the car, and I could see the case of liquor stacked up in the back seat. And I waited till I got close enough to grab the driver, grabbed him in the collar. The other one ran. But anyway, took him and had him sitting in the car waiting for it, and the ABC officer come pick up the load of whiskey. And I kept looking at him, and I said, "I've seen you before." I said, "You were driving that old 48 Plymouth over here about 12 years ago." And he said, "Yeah, that was me." His name was Roy Doolin, one of the famous Doolin boys out of Danville that hauled whiskey from up here. And so I know I got to go to jail. Said, but at least you could let me have a drink of it. I said, well, I took him on back to the car and I let him take him a big swap out of it. But the first load of liquor I caught, the man is here in the room tonight. He was driving an old car that didn't have a whole lot of power. He was pretty well loaded, going up by NAF community, one of those Stark.
Catch him pretty easy, couldn't you?
Yeah, didn't have a problem with that.
It wasn't me.
It was me. Let me ask Lane, I'm going to get a little, is that me? Not. Yeah. Is it? I'm going to get a little help from Al Floor here in a few minutes, but I'd like to ask Lane a question. Not to put you on the spot, but way back when, were you hauling liquor, or were you making it and letting somebody else haul it? And I'm not getting names involved. I just wondered what your job was. You worked in the woods. Yeah. Let somebody else get out on the road.
If you got good stuff, they come get it.
if you make good stuff, somebody's gonna come get it.
That's right. You didn't have
Good
to.
answer. Good answer.
Yeah.
I also, we do this every once in a while, like I said, at Ferrum College. I'd like to say one quick thing, and then I want to get some guidance from Al Flora. I've taken pictures since 1964 of moonshine stills, and the two pictures I've got back there that for sale tonight are actually, it was the largest still. There were 24 800-gallon or black pot stills, as they were called, at one time. That was the biggest for a long time, and color film was non-existent. So that's the black and white you see a lot of.
Famous.
And the other one was made in 1993 in January. And this one was 36 800-gallon black pot or submarine type steels. Unusual picture there is because two caps were running into one doubler or one thumper, and it's the first and only time I've ever seen that done, and that was in '93 when I took that picture. Two steels run to the same time, went into thumper and doubler, went into the worm and cooling box. And it took me 3 pictures to get that steel in one together, and it took me 20 years to find somebody who would piece it together without showing. But if you'll notice in the background, that's a rectangular building. It's a metal building, metal-sided building, rectangular. But the walls go like this in the background, and it had to be that way so we could get the steel together in one picture. So, but I want to just tell you one quick story about the cemetery steel. Probably the most unusual steel, and one talked about in Franklin County the most. And it was not under a cemetery like some people think. The person who built this steel and put it into operation, they were brothers. And they're still around, they're fairly young. But what they had done, they had rented an old house. They got electricity in somebody's name, it was dead. Had electricity running to the steel. They had a refrigerator to keep their beer and the food in the refrigerator. They didn't use lights, of course, but the cemetery part came because the steel was set up in a pine thicket with tin built in, with tin, covered with tin. And they had to have a road leading up to that steel for their liquor and their supplies, to everything. And they had to have a reason for that road going up to those woods and not be suspicious when the agents flew over a lot of times that they did in an airplane. So they took cinder blocks, stacked them, painted them white, made it look like a cemetery, put artificial flowers in front of the tombstones. So, of course, these people were driving up to pay their respects to their deceased family members who were buried in this. 10 feet beyond was the steel, and there was a path going in, and I've got pictures of this, and I wanted to get something together to bring it tonight, but I didn't get to. Maybe the next time we do this. But they had a pipe in the ground, and they cut a fresh pine tree, stick it in that pipe to cover that path, so you had a complete solid row of pine trees, just bull pines, whatever, scrub pines. And when the tree started dying, they'd pull it up, throw it over in the woods, cut it up, and stick it down the pipe. So it got the name of the cemetery still, but as somebody said, how'd they get it under the cemetery? I said, no, it wasn't under a cemetery. So that was, I don't know how the rumors over the years, but one of these days, I keep telling Jack that I'm going to write my book. It's going to call A Night of Making Liquor and Other B.S. Moonshine Stories. And I know 3 copies already got sold. So look out when I hit the streets with it. 4. If it's 4 copies. If it's half as popular as Jack's, I'll be happy. I know he's got to have sold at least. Well, we'll be in the poorhouse together, my friend. Al, tell me what you'd like for us to do. We could keep going a little while. We can do some questions and answers. I need a little guidance.
You're asking me for guidance. No, I'm good. I mean, it's if someone needs.
Would anybody like or have a short question answer session? 'Cause I mean, I tell you what, we got some good people here. We could stay here all night if you brought your pajamas. Really. All right, say it loud so I can say it into the microphone, all right?
Did they ever get shot at?
Did the officers, good question, ma'am. Did the officers ever get shot at?
Sure.
How many times, have you ever been hit?
Sure.
You see this hole right here?
That's his ear, Bobby. Was it a common thing in the 50s, 60s to be shot at?
I think it's a common thing in the 30s and 40s. If you, particularly where they had Confederates at stills, people had people in trees, and they watched their stills, and then maybe they didn't want to shoot you, but they wanted to alarm those people who's in the still, so they would fire up in the air. I know we went to a still one time in Giles County, and I stepped on a rattlesnake on top of had Trooper Lee and Trooper Heck with me, and it was one of these grates, the only grate, the camping grate in 25 miles north of the interior was there, and I happened to step on it. It was a rattlesnake, and it rolled under my foot, and when I did, I jumped back, of course, and scared the daylights out of me. And Trooper Lee, he got excited, and bam, 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 killed the rattlesnake. 7 rattlers and a button. I've got them now. I gave them to my grandsons, rather. Then I got another one with 15 rattlers and a button. I gave it to another grandson. I got another one with 8 rattlers and a button. I gave it to another grandson. I had a lot of rattlesnake buttons. Yeah. But going up there, the way they did in Giles County, they go about a half a mile up, straight up a bluff, and then drive a pipe back in the ground, and then get some spring water and run it into a still, and you can't find them. It's hard to find. So we followed the path up to where there was a log there with a notch cut in it, and there was a shotgun with no stock in it. And whoever was lying there was waiting for us, I guess. But when Trooper Lee shot the rattlesnake, it alarmed them, and they're gone, you know. So that's the kind of thing you had back in those days. And Okies, I fished, I shouldn't tell this either, but I fished a big umbrella. You know, Okies Funeral Home has them big umbrellas, you know, to put people under. I'm not talking about down here. But anyway, I fished one out of a garbage can. And I thought, well, this thing is so big, I'll make me so I soldered a spike on it, a screw. And so we were over here at Philpott Lake watching I better not say who they were. Well, they're Philpotts. And I had screwed the thing up in a tree, and it had commenced raining. And whoever it was, I know they didn't know we was there, but somebody shot that umbrella. That thing just come floating down on me. And mind you, I didn't have enough toilet paper. I can tell you that right now. And it still was in a prefab building, sort of like the one he took the picture of. It cost over $1 million to make that still of that picture right there, and 36 pots in it. Never be another still in the history of America like that. Now there's a resurgence coming on here, they say. In fact, they're making a big movie down at Peachtree, Georgia, with Dennis Clark, isn't it? The guy that come over and had to get the dialect of the Franklin Countyans. So, and I think it was more or less the diversion of it was about Franklin County. It should have been made here, but it wasn't. So, and it's going to show a lot about probably the Franklin County spiritually that you write about a lot, and that Dr. Greer did, and what have you. So, but yeah, there was fatalities. We had 40 or 50 men killed. In 1950, Blevins was shot and killed. One from Henry County was shot and killed in Pulaski County. But nothing lately can hardly, well, don't even have any ABC men, federal officers over here now. So who can get killed, who can get shot, well, anybody can make liquor.
When I came here, Jack Powell was stationed in Roanoke. Kenny Stoneman, John Hicks, and Jim Bowman, 3 agents stationed here, right here, Franklin County,
And 12 federal men.
at their disposal. And they had, Jack, if they could call, how many were in your group?
It was 4 in Roanoke and
Martinsville, they had them in Floyd.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they had them everywhere.
Yeah, and so
They're behind every tree,
That's about right.
you know.
But now Kenny Stoneman, most of you remember Kenny Stoneman and John Hicks and Jim Bowman.
Well, Mr. Hapgood was here.
Well, yeah, there's people all.
He was standing behind the tree.
We're not saying he's as old as us, but he's getting ready to retire. If that tells you something.
That's why I said he was here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But those 3 men, I went with them on more steel raids than I can ever remember, and I've got negatives of those steals that I went to, and I got to put them in photographs to get them in this book.
I'm glad you lost your camera.
I took a picture that's on the cover of his number 3 dying art, and when you come to dying art, I told Jack, this bunch up here tonight's a dying breed, with the exception of Doc. Well, you know, you got
He's a
some
professor.
younger guys down on that end of the stage, but you stop and think about it, the people that had been associated with the good old days of moonshine, we are a dying breed. There's nobody else that goes out and takes moonshine photographs because there's no moonshine steals to photograph. And of course, if Lane would want to get back into business, maybe he could call President Obama and tell him he could make him some moonshine he could use and help his gas situation out a little bit.
Yes, yeah.
Lane,
Yeah.
tell everybody what it, tell us what good liquor is. What's the, you hear all these tales about the beads and the look, the smell. What's the best way to know if you've got good liquor?
The best liquor is a sweet mashed corn liquor. And you want
Sweet
it
mashed corn liquor.
yes, and you want it around 100, 110 proof.
So how do you tell if it's good?
Well, Daddy had a low half pint bottle and he'd hit it 3 licks like that. If that bead come up there and half of them bubbles step on top of the line, half under the line, you had around 100, 110 proof liquor.
That was almost foolproof too, wasn't it?
Yeah, that didn't have no other gauge. Yeah.
They made some in Giles County, I'd say reagent tested 142 proof. It take enamel off your teeth.
What about, Lane, let me ask you this. We're talking about your dad, the way he did it,
Yeah.
hitting the ball.
Way proof.
What about swirling it like a tornado?
He always just hit it 3 licks like that.
Well, have you ever seen the swirling?
No.
I felt like a tornado.
That's what happens after you drink it.
I was always told by some other people, names I've forgotten, that if you swirl the jar and you get the tornado effect going down, the stronger the proof. If you don't get a bead, if it won't swirl down, you don't have much proof going for you.
Yeah.
That in your book, Professor?
Yeah, I was just going to test.
We'll find out right
No tornado.
No tornado. Well, hey, I need a sip of that. What you got?
In one of my songs,
Whoa, this is good and cold.
in one of my
too.
songs that Sue wrote, at the end of the song it says, let's all take a drink. And I got the top coming off a jar. You get spinning off.
And go
It
poof.
took me like half a day recording that top to get exactly right saying. Sounds just like that. It's all take a drink and you hear the top coming off.
Anybody else got a question? If you got a question to talk about moonshine, ask Mr. Rakes. I just spent one night at the still. It fascinated me to no end. And I admire people like Lane Rakes, who knows this art, who's practiced this art, and it's just a crying shame that this art can't be preserved here by some entrepreneur in Franklin County who would start a legal distillery here and call it Franklin County Shine. What else?
I want them to get their money's worth, so I'm going to tell them about the little doggy.
Tell
It was over in Patrick County. Roy said, I want you to come help me catch this bunch over here making liquor. So I said, well, consider them in jail. It's just that easy. So we went, and it was behind a sawmill. And he said the still was behind the sawmill. We found the sawmill, no still. But we look beyond the sawmill a little ways. We saw a man come walking out from in some laurels. And he had a field jacket on, sort of like I did, a marine field jacket, and a sort of a hat like I had on, also a marine hat. And the little dog was coming, a little doggy, no bigger than this, was with him. And he pulls his overalls down and goes to the bathroom. And the little doggy sits down with him and goes to the bathroom. Well, Roar couldn't hear too good, and I said, Jimmy, get down. That dog's going to see us. Huh? I said, get down, Jimmy. The dog's going to see us. Woo, 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 woo. Here comes the little doggy. Thing's not no bigger than that. Woo, woo, woo. You would have thought that he would have panicked, the man. He never panicked. He took his toilet paper and took his time. He got up, he fixed his galluses up, and he walks, fixes his hat back and his field jacket. Come on, puppy. And they go back, and when he got to the laurels, he said, run like hell, it's a law. And down through those laurels they went, and they tore every laurel in Patrick County down. There was a big yellow house, and I was calling on the radio, car 3, where are you, where are you? Go to that house. And Van and Weddle ambled on down there or something. And I went flying down to the back, and a lady come to the back door. I said, ma'am, did you see 2 men running down through here? I haven't seen a soul. I haven't seen a soul. I said, ma'am, there's no way in the world. I've been in Washington. I haven't had time to even look out the window. Never seen them since. But there was a truck, mind you, and I'm going to tell you, I hope he isn't sitting in here. There was a blue truck sitting there. We seized it, of course. And, of course, we ran a 1028 on it, and it was a man over here in Rocky Mount. So on my way back to Roanoke, I said, I believe I'll go by and see where this gentleman is. So I went and knocked on the door. The lady comes to the door, and she said, can I help you? And I said, yes, ma'am. I said, you have a blue truck? My husband has a blue truck. And I said, well, ma'am, I said, do you know where your husband? He better be at Bassett working. I said, what do you mean? He better be at the furniture company working. And I said, well, he's working all right, ma'am. He was working all day long. Well, where was he? I said, in the steel. She said, you were lying, so-and-so. We ain't seen him since. So, what are you going to do? The little dog, I picked the little doggy up. And to see if it had a tag on it, like you have to register, no tag, of course. You don't even register for taxes here. Why would they register a dog?
I want to thank Jack, and I want to thank Woodrow and Lane and Bobby for being here, and I enjoy hearing this. We can go here, we can stay another 3 or 4 hours for tomorrow's church day. And I know it's about 10 o'clock. Good. And I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank Charlie for coming up and giving us some insight into this book. And I would like to see us become an annual event for however long anybody can sit up here and tell these tales. Maybe semi-annual, considering the age of a couple of us. But I just want to thank you for coming out and making this event a successful event. I heard that we were supposed to had 125 tickets for sale, but somebody did some finagling, and we got a pretty good number of people here tonight, more than 125. So give your hand to the Rotary Club, and we enjoyed it. And I know I can speak for all of us, and you all have a good evening.